scripture I'll be reading today are different than what are in your bulletin, and same with the sermon. The sermon is the prize right under our noses, and the scripture readings begin with Isaiah from the Old Testament, chapter 35, verses 3 through 7. Let us listen to God's Word. But first, before we begin to listen to it, I'd like to pray for it. Pray for our understanding. May the words of my mouth and the meditations of our heart be acceptable to you, O Lord, our strength and Redeemer. In Jesus' name, Amen. Now, we turn to the prophet Isaiah, chapter 35, verses 3 to 7. Strengthen the weak hands, make firm the feeble knees. Say to those who are of a fearful heart, be strong, do not fear. Here is your God. He will come with vengeance, with terrible recompense. He will come and save you. Then the eyes of the blind shall be opened, and the ears of the deaf unstopped. Then the lame shall leap like a deer, and the tongue of the speechless sing for joy. For waters shall break forth in the wilderness, and streams in the desert. The burning sand shall become a pool, and the thirsty ground springs of water. The haunt of jackals shall become a swamp. The grass shall become reeds and rushes. This is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. And then from the Gospel according to John, from the 9th chapter, actually it is the 9th chapter, verses 1 through 42. John is notable in the Gospel of John is notable for there are extended stories of Jesus' interactions, and so it's not uncommon for one story to take a whole chapter. But it's powerful stuff. As he walked, this is speaking of Jesus, as he walked along, he saw a man blind from birth. His disciples asked him, Rabbi, who sinned, this man or his parents, that he was born blind? Jesus answered, neither this man nor his parents sinned. He was born blind so that God's work might be revealed in him. We must work the works of him who sent me while it is day. Night is coming when no one can work. As long as I am in the world, I am the light of the world. When he had said this, he spat on the ground and made mud with his saliva and spread the mud on the man's eyes, saying to him, go wash in the pool of Siloam, which means sent. Then he went and washed and came back able to see. The neighbors and those who had seen him before as a beggar began to ask, Is this not the man who used to sit and beg? Some were saying, it is he. Others were saying, no, but it is someone like him. He kept saying, I am the man. But they kept asking him, then how were your eyes opened? He answered, the man called Jesus made mud, spread it on my eyes, and said to me, go to Siloam and wash. Then I went and washed and received my sight. They said to him, where is he? He said, I do not know. They brought to the Pharisees the man who had formerly been blind. Now it was a Sabbath day when Jesus made the mud and opened his eyes. Then the Pharisees also began to ask him how he had received his sight. He said to them, he put mud on my eyes. Then I washed, and now I see. Some of the Pharisees said, this man is not from God, for he does not observe the Sabbath. But others said, how can a man who is a sinner perform such signs? And they were divided. So they said again to the blind man, what do you say about him? It was your eyes he opened. He said, he's a prophet. The Jews did not believe that he had been blind and had received his sight until they called the parents of the man who had received the sight and asked them, is this your son who you say was born blind? How then does he now see? His parents answered, we know that this is our son and that he was born blind, but we do not know how it is that now he sees, nor do we know who opened his eyes. Ask him, he is of age. He will speak for himself. His parents said this because they were afraid of the Jews. The Jews had already agreed that anyone who confessed Jesus to be the Messiah will be put out of the synagogue. Therefore his parents said, He is of age, ask him. So for the second time they called the man who had been blind. They said to him, Give glory to God. We know that this man is a sinner. He answered, I do not know whether he is a sinner. One thing I do know, that though I was blind, now I see. They said to him, What did he do to you? How did he open your eyes? He answered them, I have told you already, and you would not listen. Why do you want to hear it again? Do you also want to become his disciples? Then they reviled him, saying, You are his disciple, but we are disciples of Moses. We know that God has spoken to Moses, but as for this man, we do not know where he comes from. The man answered, Here is an astonishing thing. You do not know where he comes from, and yet he opened my eyes. We know that God does not listen to sinners, but he does listen to one who worships him and obeys his will. Never since the world began has it been heard that anyone opened the eyes of a person born blind. If this man were not from God, he could do nothing. They answered him, You were born entirely in sin, and are you trying to teach us? And they drove him off. Now, Jesus heard they had driven him out, and when he found him, he said, Do you believe in the Son of Man? He answered, And who is he, sir? Tell me, so that I may believe in him. Jesus said to him, You have seen him, and the one speaking with you is he. He said, Lord, I believe. And he worshipped him. Jesus said, I came into this world for judgment, so that those who do not see may see, and those who do see may become blind. Some of the Pharisees near him heard this and said to him, Surely we are not blind, are we? Jesus said to them, If you were blind, you would not have sinned. But now that you say, We see, your sin remains. This is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. I was visiting a parishioner at the University of Virginia's Medical Center one afternoon when I turned the corner and almost ran into a crowd of medical students surrounding the doctor. We were talking about apparently a patient or some type of treatment. They reminded me a bit of the crowd of the disciples who followed Jesus. And when they came upon a man who was born blind begging along the street, they discussed his condition and how it came to be and so forth. When they learned he had been blind from birth, they asked, using the most well-known and accepted theories of the day, was it his sin or his parents' sin that caused this condition? They, like some of the medical students I had almost run into before, sometimes tend to view persons as subjects to be studied more than as persons to be known. We too can be a bit like that when we meet someone who is so different from ourselves or has a condition we don't understand. We talk about them and we study them from a distance and share our various theories about how they got that way. Like when we consider nearly 17% of children are born with some sort of developmental disorder, ranging from speech or hearing loss or impairment to various learning and behavioral disorders. In the United States, some 3% of children have been born with some sort of vision disorder. We speculatively comment from afar until one of us or one of our children becomes one of them. Stricken with blindness which heightens stricken with blindness or some other disability can heighten our other senses. So perhaps we can hear a bit better than we can see, or sense emotions more quickly coming from other persons. Who did the disciples see when they saw the blind man? A man wearing a sign around his neck saying, blind from birth? Probably not. Likely they saw a man dressed in rags and holding out a bowl or a cup in front of him, begging for charitable gifts. Maybe he was a weaver of baskets, sitting in the shade of a street-side tent. The disciples may have inquired about him or talked to him to find out how long he had been blind. It wasn't because of war or punishment for crimes committed, nor of a cancerous disease. He was born that way. And the blind man may have been able to hear quite clearly when they asked Jesus, whose sin was it? Was it his or his parents that caused him to be this way? Well, he had heard it all before. The answer that didn't make any sense to him or made sense to sighted persons and persons without deformities or physical irregularities of any kind. He knew how easy it is for us to blame others for sin when they have problems we don't have the same kind. He knew the causes of his condition and sin's effects had to be much harder to pin down than that. His parents, he knew, were good people. They were active in the synagogue, hard workers, faithful mother and father. They had done nothing wrong to deserve a blind son. It was a mystery to him, but he was blessed with a caring family who tried to help him as much as they could. And he tried his best to help them by begging for money to bring some money back into the household, since he couldn't have a regular job, or by being a good listener, and by being a person of hope. Yvonne Mosquera had her eyes removed before she was 6 months old because they were diseased. When she was 13 years old, she wrote that sometimes it bothers me that I can't see the way somebody else looks, but in a way it's an advantage that I'm blind because I can't judge a book by its cover. If I think people are cute, it's not because my sisters or friends tell me so, but because of their voice or the way they act. And when I dream at night, I picture people as what I think they look like. They might come into my dreams as a voice, or I might not, or I might know them by their height or what they're wearing. I don't think the pictures I make in my mind are similar to the pictures a sighted person would make, but I can always tell who the people in my dreams are. Maybe Jesus had been in the blind man's dreams. After all, he was a Jew too. He and his people had been waiting for the Messiah to come for centuries. Although prophets had long ceased to speak in Israel, from time to time revolutionaries would stir up the people and with their hopes of restoring the kingdom, but they would be killed off. Yet this Jesus who had stopped by him with his disciples, could he be different? The reply Jesus gave to his disciples made the man's hope soar. Neither this man nor his parents have sinned. This man was born blind so that the works of God might be revealed in him. The works of God. We must work the works of him who sent me while it is day. Night is coming when no one can work. As long as I am in the world, I am the light of the world. The voice was one perhaps he had dreamed of, hoped for. Not a voice of condemnation, but a voice of mercy. The voice disclosing divine power. The voice that says, no matter what condition your life is in, I, the Lord, love you, and I have come so that my goodness, my life can be revealed in you. You with a hardened heart, with the illness that doesn't seem to get better, with the learning disability or with the blind eyes, I have come that you may have life and have it abundantly. Already light was shining upon the man's soul, illuminating his spirit, strengthening his heart, shoring up the timbers of faith that had been weakened by many years of disappointment. Faith that endured years of crude insults from ignorant passers-by. What did they know? Did they know that I'm a man inside this body? I'm a person, just like them, but not to all of them. For some treated me as less than human, cursed by the devil, possessed by a spirit, evil spirit. But not Jesus who stands by me now. Not Jesus who speaks to my heart and whose face I begin to see as if in a dream, as if speaking directly to my soul. Jesus knows me and you. Jesus knows us all. And this is good if we let it be so. If we let his light come in. He told me to put my begging cup down and get on my knees. People got closer. Conversation stopped. I could hear the quiet. I could feel the intensity of their stares. Something was about to happen. Jesus spat on the ground several times. He's picking up that wet mud and putting it in the deep sockets of my eyes. The very dust that had seeped into every piece of my clothing by the roadside was being made into something special, a vehicle for healing. Nothing special, just dirt and water. Just like me, just another human being, but special in God's sight, to Jesus' touch. And Jesus said, go wash in the pool of Siloam. And I went and washed and came back able to see. I can see. I still see. Everybody was amazed. Those who had known me for years were so shocked some didn't believe it until they asked my parents. Then they wanted me to go to the leaders of our people, to the Pharisees and Sanhedrin. So I went with them, but the questions only got worse. I told the story of what Jesus had done, but they didn't want to hear it. All they wanted to do was to put blame on somebody for breaking the Sabbath, and to punish someone, namely Jesus, for acting like he was above the law of the Sabbath, something more than human, like he was either God or the devil. My old friends and neighbors, even my parents, began to separate themselves from me, their own flesh and blood. They were afraid of being thrown out of the synagogue if they didn't give an answer the Pharisees wanted. Sin, the Pharisees declared, was at the root of the problem. But I explained to them that although I hadn't not done advanced studies like they had, Jesus could be a sinner because we all know God doesn't listen to sinners, but only those who worship him and obey his will. Never since the world began has it been heard that anyone opened the eyes of a person born blind. If this man were not from God, he could have done nothing. The real issue was not sin, but who Jesus is. That's the heart of the matter. Not my history of sinfulness or theirs, but the identity of Jesus. And the Pharisees were not buying my story. I told them what happened. They refused to believe. So when they asked me a second time, I asked them if they had changed their minds and wanted to become disciples. That really upset them. They started spouting off about all the knowledge of Moses they had, and they had been given, and saying that Jesus had told them nothing about where he had come from, or by what authority he did his work. And I replied to them, I do not know whether Jesus is a sinner. One thing I do know, that though I was blind, now I see. Here is an astonishing thing. You do not know where he comes from, yet he opened my eyes. We had reached an impasse. They didn't believe that God was working through Jesus, but I did. So they tossed me out of the courtroom and onto the street. My new life was beginning without anyone. But after I'd wandered the streets for a while, Jesus found me. He said he had heard what had happened, and then he asked me, do you believe in the Son of Man? I asked him, who is he, sir? Tell me so that I may believe in him. Jesus said, you have seen him, and the one speaking with you is he. And I said, Lord, I believe. His was the voice I had hoped for and heard in my dreams. He is the one for whom my people have been waiting. But why don't they recognize him? They see, but they really don't see. Who are they looking at? For the prize is right under their noses. That is what separates disciples from others. Some of us have found the prize. We know who it is that calls us to follow him. But discovering Jesus didn't come immediately to all of us. He had to come to us alongside the road, perhaps, where we were begging for help. Others were mending nets, collecting taxes, cooking meals, or suffering from one infirmity or another. Many came to his public lectures and saw his healing work. Some of us had to tag along a long time before we believed. We came with our kids. We followed with our wives. We came with our husbands. We accompanied our boyfriends or girlfriends. Acting like we could always exercise the option of pulling out. We really didn't want to make a commitment. And then we found that the lessons of Moses are good for teaching faith in God. And that even Jesus built his teachings upon them. But Jesus also went further. He went beyond tradition. He led us into a new relationship with God, based on believing in him as God's Son. You may want some scholarly work to defend and explain my faith, but I don't have that to share. I don't even know how to read or write, having been blind most of my life, all of my life. Or you may want some short, pithy sayings about positive thinking, but I don't remember those too well. But one thing I do know, though I was blind, now I see. Lawrence Vanderpost has written, "There is a moment when only the living Word will do, the Word which is clamoring for flesh and blood to live it. You and I are invited to believe and to make this belief a part of our living. Though I was blind, now I see." The blind man's exchanges with the Pharisees reveal the sad truth of what happens to persons and institutions who are blind to new life surging in their midst. Death comes. Death is imprisonment in one moment of time, confinement in one sharp, uncompromising aspect of ourselves. Death is exclusion from renewal of our present day selves. Hell is refusing to join in the movement of the wind and the stars. On the other hand, heaven is the boulder rock which is unrolled from the tomb to let new life out for eternity. Sometimes only the spoken word will roll away the rock and let the new life come forth. As Jesus said, "I came into this world for judgment, that those who are blind may see, and those who see may become blind." It's a miracle when we become able to see the way God wants us to see. It's a gift, not just for those who are physically blind, but also for those of us who claim to see. God, by grace, enables us to grow in our ability to see love at work and become love for others in the name of Christ. Like Jimmy O'Neill, a 15-year-old young man with cystic fibrosis who wrote down his thoughts about being a person who was born with CF, which is a chronic and eventually fatal lung disease. My life is different from those of other kids because I've grown up with it," he writes. It's something I've gotten used to. It's probably hard for you to imagine that what my life is like as it is for me to imagine how other people live. I can't imagine what it would be like to have diabetes and to give yourself shots once or twice or more a day. I suppose that there are all sorts of people who are so used to what they have to do that it doesn't seem weird. It's how they live. I go to church once a week, which is a source of comfort. Mostly I pray that God will take care of me no matter what happens. There are some things in life you have choices about, and there are things you don't. Having CF is one of those things where there isn't a whole lot I can do, other than praying and having faith that everything will be taken care of. You always have a little hope, because if you run out of that, there's nothing worth anything. You might as well give up right then and there. I have a faith. I have faith that there's a reason that I have this disease. God just didn't draw my name out of a hat. There has to be a reason why I'm sick, why I have the wonderful parents and brother I have, and I have faith that God will take care of whatever is going to happen. Sometimes I think that maybe He knew I'd have this attitude and put me here so that other kids who are sick can see me and say, "Hey, maybe He is right. Maybe there is hope." I like to think that. I like to feel that when people see me, they realize that their own lives could be a lot worse, and maybe they appreciate how lucky they are. That's what often happens to me. I look at some of the other kids on the ward, or I read about small children starving in Ethiopia or Sudan, and realize how lucky I am. You and I, like the blind man in his blindness, are blessed or burdened by choices that are sometimes out of reach or beyond our power and control. But we each have the choice to believe in Jesus and receive the power and the new life that comes from believing in His name. A choice that is to be made freely. A choice that is welcomed by the Lord. A choice that is made not only by a blind man cured of his blindness, but also by a young man who remains sick in body, but strong in soul. Hey, maybe the blind man and Jimmy O'Neill are right. There is hope. Let the works of God be revealed through us as well. Amen. Let us pray. Gracious God, you choose us to be your disciples, and sometimes we find that to be very unusual. We ask you to make your works known through us. Let us be humble and receive the grace that you have, and to live it as your faithful ones, who embody your hope and seek to share that with the world. In Christ's name we pray. Amen.